Welcome to Symbols and Cynicism, a podcast where we talk about all of the things I love, some of the things I hate, in this wacky adventure we call life. My name is Bob, I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here today as we talk about Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, my running journey, and sports salaries. Welcome, let's get started. Indeed, welcome back. Our first order of business today is our new theme music. Since the beginning of the podcast, if you've been listening, we've been hearing Superfly, which was a cadence written by me, I don't know, in the mid-90s or so when I was in college and I was the drum instructor at Worthington Kilbourne High School in Columbus while I was going to Ohio State. And that's been, the plan is to switch it up every once in a while, and we're in episode 7 now, so I decided to switch up the theme music. I did not write that cadence. I'm not sure who wrote it or when it was written. When I was in high school, it was the cadence that we used at Canton South High School that had been passed down through, years or whoever of however many generations of students. It kind of been rewritten and altered probably over the years. It was one of those tribal knowledge kind of things. I think somebody before me wrote it down. The copy I have is a version that I must have sort of rewritten and changed some things when I was in high school as I was fancying myself as a bit of a composer. But you'll notice that it's obviously traditional cadence, not quite like the modern stuff you would hear today. Canton South was a very traditional high school band, still is. Block drills and pinwheels and high steps. Back then we wore sling drums and mylar heads and things like that. So my band director, Mr. Bowman, who taught there for, I don't know, maybe 40 years, was a traditionalist, especially when it came to marching band. He did not like the modern marching band stuff. I've often said if Mr. Bowman had ever seen one of my marching bands, he probably would have been pretty upset because we definitely dove into the contemporary and that was not his thing. Maybe he would have appreciated it. He passed away just recently after a long battle with Parkinson's. He lived a long life. He was the band director at Canton South for, 40 years or something like that. And I still refer to him to this day as Mr. Bowman. When I was in college, I came back for a visit one time and he said, "Call me Lee." His real name is Lee J. Bowman. "Call me Lee." And I said, I don't know if I can, out of fear, out of reverence, out of respect. And I forever called him Mr. Bowman. And I think I always will. Sometimes people ask me why professionally I've always gone with Robert H. Sloan in that middle initial. And the real answer is because my high school band director was Lee J. Bowman. And he's one of the main reasons I went into education. And I don't know, I guess it was as an homage to him. So our new theme music is the Canton South Street Cadence. Not sure who wrote it, but we'll have that around for a couple of weeks. Did you do the homework? It was a hard one. I'll give you that. It was to make a list of 3 to 5 things that you would want to have as a new skill or a hobby that would be fun or rewarding to do, and to investigate what that might take to start. We mentioned like run a 5K or a marathon or start a podcast, crochet, etc. It could be anything. To be honest with you, I did not do this homework, mostly because I'm already a pretty new runner. I've just started this podcast. I've got a new career. I've got a lot of new on my plate, so to speak, and don't think my life can handle anything else at this moment as far as new is concerned. But I hope you did it. And I hope you've investigated. Maybe you're going to pick one and do it. If you do, I would love to hear about it and hear about your journey, because this new idea and trying something new can be exciting. It can be invigorating. It starts to be the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning, and just a lot of energy involved in there. So I hope you did the homework. Some feedback this week. We got a text from a listener. Love the reminder to let running be because you love it. And I think that is applicable in so many aspects of life. I agree with you, Rachel. Running should be running because it's fun, and that should be a lot of things in our lives. Of course, work is work, and that's why they call it work. That's why they have to pay us to do it, probably. But yeah, we should let running be fun. I agree with you. Another listener, I love the rants, but I also love the homework. It gives me little things to do throughout the week and to think of. That's why we do it, right? I believed as a teacher that homework should be purposeful. I don't think that homework should just be to do work. Of course, sometimes it is for repetition to build a skill and to put short-term memory things into long-term memory. But we're all busy enough. We don't need more frivolous things to be doing. So I try to pick homework that's meaningful. I try to pick homework that's pretty easy to do for the most part, and probably, hopefully, a little bit rewarding, or maybe more than a little bit. Some negatives. Oh man, you missed the blue milk. Yes, that is true. I did not talk about blue milk. I have had blue milk, and if you make it to Disney, I highly suggest you try some blue milk. It is delicious. But look, I can't discuss every single minute of every single movie. That would take forever and probably also be really, really boring. We're trying to kind of cut the difference here between really super in-depth and really super surfacey, give you a little bit for somebody who's a new Star Wars fan and maybe a little something for the veteran in-depth Star Wars fan. And I did skip over the blue milk, and I'm sorry. Not a negative, but where do I start with Star Wars? There is so much of it, I don't know where to begin. That's a great question, and I get this question a lot, and I don't know that there's any right or wrong answer. In my opinion, you should start with A New Hope. Watch episode 4, and then watch the rest of the original trilogy. Granted, the movies are a little old, and the effects are a little bit of out of date, and we've talked about some of the misgivings in last episode about A New Hope, but it does give you a really solid baseline for all of Star Wars. It gives you all the characters, all the themes, all of the ideas, and then you can expand into different things based on what you like best. You like the political nature? Well, watch this. You like lightsaber battles? Well, watch this. You want more about Jedi lore? Well, then go watch this, and you can branch out and sort of watch everything. I am lucky enough to have grown up and always watched Star Wars. So I think when a new show comes out or a new movie comes out, it's like, hey, just add that to my playlist. I can just watch that. If you're new to Star Wars, wow, there is a lot. I feel a little this way about the novels. It's only been in the last, half dozen or so years that I've really tried to read some of the novels. And when I started looking at it, there's like hundreds of novels. It's like, where do I begin? Well, I just had to pick a place. What do I want to learn about? Go. And then I've kind of built upon that. So I suggest you do the same thing. Start with A New Hope. It's the beginning. It might as well be your beginning too, and go for it. Quick reminder, name the logo. If you have a good name for our snarky symbol logo created for us by John Suh, send us a text using the contact link in the show description. Include your email with your text. I promise we won't spam your account. We'll give it a few weeks, and if we pick your name, we'll send you a free Symbols and Cynicism t-shirt. Lots of great suggestions came in this week. No results yet, so there is still time to submit your suggestion. And you're thinking, wait, there are t-shirts? Well, no, there are not t-shirts yet, but that is coming soon. We're working on it, so stay tuned. We have some great merch in the works, and we'll get that up as soon as we can. On today's episode, we'll take a fanboy deep dive into episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. We're going to open my Strava, find out about my running distance recently and that journey, and sports salaries. We've got a lot to do, so let's get going. List of best and favorite Star Wars movies, one movie stands alone at the top, and it's episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I've mentioned that a couple of times over the series of Star Wars podcasts. As new movies have come around, I've always stayed open-minded. Empire Strikes Back is 45 years old. I've stayed open-minded about removing it and replacing it, but none have dethroned it. This is basically a perfect Star Wars movie. There is one recent movie that has come close, and we'll talk about that eventually, but I just couldn't do it. When I went to see that movie, I returned to Empire. I went to see that movie. I watched Empire. For me, so far, it's Empire forever. What about all-time favorite movies, not just Star Wars movies? I would say Empire Strikes Back is definitely in my top 5 all-time favorite movies. For me, all-time favorite is a really hard thing to define because dramas are different than comedies. How do you compare Tommy Boy to Shawshank Redemption? Both are great, both are fantastic movies. I love them both. You just can't compare them, right? Two totally different kind of movies. But Empire is definitely near the top of overall favorites. So let's get into it. New Hope had been a smashing success. Oscar nominations, awards, financial success. George Lucas was more or less secured in his ability to remain an independent filmmaker. With the money made from A New Hope, he could stand his ground on what he wanted to do next. So remember, Star Wars, as it was called, was only one part of that original story that he wrote. Remember, he divided the complicated story into 3 parts. A New Hope was part 1. There was more to the story. And with the success of the first movie, he could now tell the rest. Empire Strikes Back would have twice the budget of what we can now call A New Hope. Wishing to remain independent, defied Hollywood thinking and funded the movie himself. He didn't want the movie studio telling him to change this and change that and get in the way of his storytelling. He wanted it his way. Ultimately, Empire would be distributed by 20th Century Fox, but the rest would be independent. One of his first moves would be to hire a different director, Irvin Kershner, a veteran director, but all with smaller pictures, never a blockbuster. He told a lot of human interest, small pictures, great director, never a blockbuster. Originally, Kershner turned down the job, saying it can only ever be a second Star Wars. It can't be special. Upon sharing this information with his agent called him nuts, and Kershner ultimately accepted the job. The Empire Strikes Back debuted in theaters on May 21st, 1980, almost exactly 3 years to the day following A New Hope. And indeed, in terms of plot, this movie takes place 3 years after A New Hope. Star Wars timelines hover around the idea of ABY, or after the Battle of Yavin, which is the battle at the end of A New Hope. When you think of ABY or BBY, before the Battle of Yavin, think of it like AD and BC in terms of real life. The Star Wars timeline sets 0 as basically where A New Hope is, and then forward is after ABY, and before that is BBY before. So A New Hope takes place in 0 ABY. Empire takes place in 3 ABY, or 3 years after A New Hope, after the Battle of Yavin. Let's talk about Star Wars timelines for a moment. They sort of suck. Nothing quite makes total sense. Most things are sort of relative to each other, and like if you squint really hard, it does all make sense. But if you try to diagram it too closely, you will drive yourself nuts. So don't even try. Just leave it alone and go with the flow. Remember Beverly Hills 90210 when we were supposed to believe that a bunch of 35-year-old actors are high school kids? It's sort of like that. And if you don't remember Beverly Hills 90210, well, I guess I'm old. For this episode, Lucas wanted everything to be bigger, everything to be better, the story to be more in-depth. I mentioned last time he saw this as the second act of his grand 3-act play. And if you've seen a lot of plays, Act 2 is usually where everything falls apart and turns into turmoil, and that is what Lucas wanted. Most people believe Act 2 to be the best act of most plays and most movies. Act 1 sort of sets things up. Act 2, everything goes to heck. Act 3, we wrap everything up. The climax sort of happens in Act 2. But he also wanted to maintain some of the same rhythms, some of the same ideas and thoughts and the way Star Wars worked. So we begin with A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away. Still an opening shot. The traditional opening scroll reminds us of the destruction of the Death Star. Much the same way in Episode 4, it told us the backstory that we didn't know and wouldn't know for a very long time. This reminds us of the story that we do know. But why do we need reminded? Okay, young people, let me take you back to 1980. This is before streaming. This is before Blu-ray, before DVD, before VHS. Google it. In 1980, most people did not have a VCR. They couldn't watch movies at home. And in fact, when Empire came out in theaters in 1980, A New Hope had not even been released on video. I'll say that again. When Empire debuted in theaters in 1980, A New Hope had not yet been released for home video. The VHS version of A New Hope was released 2 years later in 1982. Today, Thunderbolts is already streaming just a few months after it debuted in theaters. It took A New Hope 5 years to be released. Then you could rent it and watch it at home if you were lucky enough to have a VCR. So yeah, some people might have needed a reminder about the Death Star just as a quickie. This was not today's day and age where a movie streams shortly after its run in theaters. Different time, different place. Get off my lawn. The scroll cuts to a Star Destroyer in space, very reminiscent of A New Hope. Then some small weird things fly through space and we're suddenly on a new planet. So we get some familiar galaxy far, far away, a scroll, a Star Destroyer. Now we're into new. Don't forget, this is the same story. Next part, we're on Hoth, in the Hoth system, and we waste no time seeing Luke, Han, Chewie, and Leia. Again, familiarity. Han and Leia give us a lot of romantic drama in the hallway here right at the beginning of the scene. One of the things Kirshner wanted to do was to add more romance to the story to add depth to the characters. This was his home plate. Romance. Character development. He didn't want to do it in a super ooey gooey love scene sort of way. He realized this was ultimately a movie aimed at kids, but he wanted a romantic element for the adults who are taking their kids to the movie. And here it is, right off the start. Han and Leia have clearly not fully defined their relationship. There is still unspoken tension. One line to note here is Han saying,
"Come on. You want me to stay because of the way you feel about me?"
Yes, you're a great help to us. You're a natural leader.
No, that's not it. Come on. Come on.
You're imagining.
He clearly wants to force Leia to make the first move, and she is too stubborn. Think of all the time wasted here. That's a life lesson, boys and girls. If you like them, tell them. Take it from a guy who was always scared to talk to girls. Step out and take the chance. Another indication here of our different director is a sense of humor. Leia says,
I just assumed he's a Wookiee.
And Han replies,
I can arrange that.
Kirshner wanted to add more romance, but he also wanted to add a little humor, not in a slapstick gag sort of way, but he wanted there to be more chuckles in this movie. And he starts with that right away. So if you find yourself chuckling throughout Empire Strikes Back, Kirshner would be happy. Humor continues a little later with more Han and Leia banter, and we get some more romantic tension here when Leia kisses Luke right in front of Han, clearly baiting him. Check out the look on Chewie, Han, and even 3PO's face in the background. It's hilarious. Now, quick reminder, it has been 3 years in the timeline since A New Hope. Has this romantic tension been going on for 3 years? Can you imagine? I just wonder, what has happened in this timeline to allow this to still be happening? Cut to the Star Destroyer and our first appearance of the Imperial March. And we get 30 seconds here with no dialogue. We see flying Imperial ships, Vader looking out the window menacingly. But the main character here is the music, clearly designed as a moment to show off this new musical element and establish its importance in the canon. This is 30 seconds of perhaps the most recognizable and often used theme from Star Wars. From here on out, we'll hear little bits of Vader's theme a lot. Last episode, we talked about this idea of the E-Day Feeks. This is Vader's E-Day Feeks. In A New Hope, he only gets menacing music. Here, he gets a full-fledged theme. It will be a constant reminder of his evil nature or that something bad is about to happen. And indeed, here we get a scene with Vader and the captains and admirals, and I love the look on the faces of the Imperials. They know Vader's reputation. As we'll see later, Vader doesn't mind murdering admirals when they mess up. Indeed, these guys probably got their jobs because they replaced someone who was murdered for messing up. Their faces tell the story. Clearly, they fear Vader. Last episode, I mentioned that Empire is my favorite because I think it is where Star Wars gets its true Star Wars legs. The one-liners, Vader's full wrath. This is what I mean. I'm not saying New Hope isn't a Star Wars. It obviously is, and it starts the story. But to me, Empire feels like what Star Wars has become and would continue to become. It's mature. It knows who it is. It understands the rhythms. Star Wars is built on one-liners, fear of the villain, pick on a droid, and shooty lightsabers. A New Hope was like the pilot of your favorite television show. Sure, it has all the characters, but it takes some time to truly make it a show that you love. And for me, Empire is the Star Wars that I truly love. The Empire finds the rebels, and we get a really cool battle on Hoth. And this is to show us that Luke has matured to become a worthy warrior. He's gone from young farm boy. He is now matured into a leader. He's cunning, and he has grown in his skills. Fast forward to Luke on Degobah. This is one of my favorite scenes, and it is for a lot of people, the wisdom of Yoda.
You must unlearn what you have learned. Do or do not. There is no try.
It's all of that growth of Luke as he's becoming a Jedi, and Yoda gets so many fantastic lines. Yoda here is a practical puppet voiced by master puppeteer Frank Oz. Now, you know Frank Oz. He's Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Bert, Cookie Monster. Yoda was actually controlled by 4 different puppeteers. Frank moved the body and voiced him, but others controlled the ears and the eyes. And this was a really complicated puppet. They wanted to make sure that this was not Kermit running around in the Star Wars universe. This had to be different and mature, and it could be cute, but not in a cute way. The Degobah set was built about 4 feet above the studio floor so that Frank could be below the set moving Yoda. During a great deal of this dialogue, because of the fans, the fog, and the set, Mark Hamill could not hear what Yoda was saying, and Frank Oz could not hear what Luke was saying. They were basically acting on their own. Mark Hamill said that this was some of the most difficult scenes in all of Star Wars because he couldn't hear Yoda, and he was the only real actor on the call sheet for weeks and weeks. Additionally, because the water and the animals were real and the set became very smelly, very disgusting, it was dangerous, and it was no fun to make. This is also the scene where Luke has his first experience with the dark side in the cave. Bit of a side quest here. Star Wars has things called vergences or force nexus. These are places or sometimes people who are particularly strong in the Force. In Episode 1, Qui-Gon mentions that Anakin is a vergence. Well, Degobah is also one of these vergences as well. Hundreds of years before the Clone Wars, there was a battle on Degobah where a Dark Jedi was killed. His Dark Force energy was consumed into the surroundings and became a Dark Force vergence along with the other areas around it. Dark Jedi? Well, you see, before the rise of the... you know what? We'll get to that another day. Anyway, Dagobah. So a Dark Force vergence was created hundreds of years before Luke arrived. Yoda enters the cave at the suggestion of Qui-Gon Jinn, way back between Episode 2 and Episode 3, in order to learn how to commune with the dead. After the Clone Wars, Yoda exiles himself to the same place to hide. But why pick here? Yoda's light side of the Force is very strong. He needed a place to hide where those who were hunting Jedi during the Jedi Purge would not sense him. He did not choose Degobah just because it was remote and uninhabited. He chose it because of the massive amount of Dark Force energy surrounding the cave and the planet. The Nexus would cover his own light side energy and he would be protected from detection. Luckily, Yoda is strong enough in the light side not to be corrupted by this dark side energy. Indeed, during the Jedi Purge, the Imperials did send a scout to Degobah. The dark energy did obscure Yoda's presence, and the Empire marked Degobah as clean of Jedi. By the way, Jedi and Sith temples are typically also built on examples of these vergences, including the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Go back and watch the end of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Bail Organa, Yoda, and Obi-Wan are planning what comes next. Obi-Wan says,
"We must take them somewhere where the Sith will not sense their presence."
Jedi and Sith can both sense the Force from great distances. They plan the location to hide the twins, and Yoda says,
Until the time is right, disappear we will.
for himself, he means Degobah. He's already been there. He tells Obi-Wan he has learned to commune with the dead, which he learned in the cave at the suggestion of Qui-Gon. Here, Luke goes into the cave to find Vader and sees himself in Vader's shattered helmet. Force vision, foreshadowing. After the events of Return of the Jedi, by the way, Luke will return to the cave again, and you could read about those events in the novel called Heir to the Empire. Highly suggested. Great book. If you're looking for some Star Wars material, it's an excellent place to start the novels. It has Han, Leia, Luke, some new characters too. It is this sort of lore that I find incredible. You dig deep enough and you will find all of these fascinating elements. Why the cave? Because it's a Force vergence of dark energy. Okay, side quest over, back to the movie. Yoda. Now I struggle with Yoda. I love his wisdom, and he is a powerful Jedi, and he is wise, he is strong in the Force. But look, if Yoda is so strong in the Force, then why does he miss the whole Anakin is turning evil thing? He spends years on Coruscant, just a few blocks from Palpatine, and does not know he's Darth Sidious. Spoiler alert, except I don't do spoiler alerts because these movies are 20, 30, 40 years old. This can sure all be explained by saying Anakin's fall was gradual and that Palpatine was strong enough in the dark side to use the Force to hide his true nature. Okay, that's fine. But back to Anakin. How many times did Anakin go to Yoda for help? He was having dreams. He was struggling with his anger. He knew something was not right, and he went to Yoda and sometimes Obi-Wan for help. What help did he receive? Silly diatribes like trust the Force and search your feelings. Dude, Anakin needed counseling, not platitudes. Did the Jedi not have a therapy wing in the temple on Coruscant? This is like your friend who comes to you and says, hey, I'm struggling. And you say, go for a walk and hit the reset button. What does that mean? How does that help? When someone is struggling, you get them actual help, not just rub some dirt on it and you'll be fine. That being said, look, what was Yoda supposed to do in terms of plot? He can't send Anakin to a therapist and fix him, right? Because then he doesn't fall to the dark side and the story is broken. Anakin had to fall in the prequels, Clone Wars era, because Vader exists in the original trilogy. There could have been a different way to do this, though. Point is, when someone you love is struggling, you don't just end the friendship. You don't just end the relationship. You sure as heck don't tell them to rub some dirt on it, work harder, it'll go away, platitude, and then pretend like the issue is not there, and then blame them when they fall to the dark side. You sit down, you listen with some real empathy. You listen to understand, not to respond. You listen for their best interest, not your best interest. And if you have the opportunity to make changes to help them, you try. If not, you get them some actual help from a trained person who can help them. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Mace, the Jedi Council, they failed on that, in my opinion. And yes, they failed because the plot said they had to. But I digress. The point is, I struggle with Yoda. I hope someday I am as wise as he is. I hope I look as good as he does when I'm 800 years old. But I also hope that I have the empathy to help those around me and those who are struggling. Oh, are we still talking about a movie? Yes, we are still talking about a movie. It's called The Empire Strikes Back, and we'll be back with more Empire right after this additional side quest. Running. Happy to report from my Strava this week. These last few weeks, the weather has been great. I've gotten out way more often. I've done 9, 5, and 6 miles the last 3 weeks. Biking has been 6, 22, and 11. The weather is gorgeous. I'm enjoying the outside. More than that, I mentioned my foot pain, and I think I'm past all that. The foot has been feeling really good. I'm looking forward to more miles in the coming weeks. I'm going to do that gradually. I don't want to have other injuries or re-injury of that injury. And especially as we work into the fall, though, the weather starts to cool down a bit. I'm looking forward to being out and going. Short report on the Van Wert High School cross country team. We talked to Bob Spath a few weeks ago. If you missed that episode, go back, give it a listen. It's a great conversation. His season is off to a great start. Lots of kids making strides toward their goals, and they're really fun young team to watch. By the way, on Strava, I'm Robert H. Sloan, so if you're interested in giving me a follow, I'd love to follow you back. Don't start a Strava if you're not into running and biking because it's going to be awful for you. It's going to be lame and boring. There's not a lot of great stuff there. We just follow and encourage each other in our running and biking journeys. Hopefully the weather in your area this week will allow you to get out there, take a bike, take a walk, take a jog. And now, back to Empire. And we're back to the swamps of Degobah. Along with this training montage, Yoda also gives us his explanation of the Force.
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Not completely unlike Obi-Wan's explanation in the last movie, but maybe with a different twist and some deeper knowledge. This, I think, is here to remind us, again, it's been years maybe since we've seen A New Hope, to remind us that there is something being hidden about this whole concept. We get the cave, as we've already discussed, and I love this scene while Luke is in the cave. There's a cutaway to Yoda and R2. R2 beeps, Yoda gives him a look, R2 beeps again, Yoda sighs. Headcanon here that this little conversation is R2 saying, dude, a dark side cave? Really? Like, dude, do you not remember Anakin? And Yoda just sighs, rolls his eyes like, come on, R2, you know me. Look, R2 has seen it all. And he and Yoda go way back. R2 was Anakin's right-hand droid during the Clone Wars. Yoda knows him. The good, the bad. And now R2 is thinking, I'm with Luke, and here we go again. powerful light side force user being tempted by the dark side. Come on, Yoda, what are you doing? We fast forward to Cloud City and we meet Lando, Han's old gambling buddy. They hint here a few different ways that there's a lot of backstory, especially when Chewie is growling and Han says, well, I'm sure he's forgotten all about that.
Well, that was a long time ago. I'm sure he's forgotten about that.
Forgot about what? I want the backstory. Well, we had to wait a long time, but we got the backstory in the movie Solo, a Star Wars story. It does a great job of the backstory of these two. Lots of great moments. I really like this movie. There was a lot of hate for Solo, and it definitely has its problems, especially from a directorial standpoint as a movie. But for me, the nostalgia of Han, and Chewie, and the Falcon, plus the backstory of Han and Lando, for me, it's worth it. I like the movie, and we will get into it eventually. Favorite scene here in Empire is the carbonite scene. The original script here called for Leia to finally say to Han, I love you, and for Han to reply, I love you too, just before he goes into the carbonite. According to Kirshner, they did this scene a ton of times and it never felt right. The actors didn't like it, Kirshner didn't like it. Eventually, Kirshner told Harrison Ford, forget everything and just do the scene. Be Han, action. Leia says,
I love you.
And Han says,
I know.
and that was it. Kirshner screamed, cut. That was the line. It was a setup way back from Hoth. Han was begging her to say it. Remember? Come on, tell me. She didn't. Now, here, with Han in peril, she does. And his scoundrel nature can only respond with, I know. Great line, great moment. Side note here, why freeze Han in carbonite? Well, Harrison Ford was the only major actor who was not signed on for the third movie. He actually believed that Han had served his purpose to the story. The smuggler gags were getting a little tired for him, and he thought it was Han's time to bow out of the story and let Luke and the others carry things from there. So freezing him was an easy way to kill him off in the third movie if needed. Now, I love Han, so I'm glad he came back, and he's a great part of the remainder of the story, but I can see Han's point. And now we get to the nexus of the movie. Luke versus Vader. We are 1 hour and 16 minutes into this movie, plus 2 hours of A New Hope. So after 3 hours and 16 minutes of movie, we finally get a decent lightsaber scene. Luke and Vader here battle for 6 minutes of screen time compared to 90 seconds of Vader versus Obi-Wan back in episode 4. The sword work here, much better. They use the Force, much better. The dialogue interspersed, much better. This is a great lightsaber battle that predicts all of the great lightsaber battles to come. And of course, it all leads to the big reveal. There have been hints. Luke's face in Vader's mask in the cave, for instance. That was a hint. Perhaps the biggest hint is his name, Vader. Darth, of course, is a title for a Sith. Darth Tyrannus, Darth Sidious, etc. It's a title like Captain, Admiral, Mr., Mrs., etc. But Vader is his given Sith name. And if you speak German, then you know that the word for father is Vater, V-A-T-E-R. Small change of a T to a D, and you get Vader. His name is literally Darth Father. Why choose German? Well, let's go back to opera. Richard Wagner and his stories, which were always in 3 parts and incredibly complicated, by the way, were also a root for a lot of Star Wars elements. Star Wars often telegraphs its plot with its names, and this is the first example. Of course, in 1980, I guess we weren't really smart enough to know that, because on the playground, we were all arguing over who Luke's father is. The cast didn't know either. The identity of Luke's father was known only to a very few people, including George Lucas and the director. The voice of Darth Vader, of course, is James Earl Jones, and the body is played by David Prowse. So all of the dialogue said by Prowse eventually gets redubbed by Jones. And since you can't see his lips moving anyway, that's an easy dub to make. David Prowse could literally be saying anything in the mask, and nobody, except the actors at the time, would have any idea. Prowse does say the Vader dialogue in order to make it easier for the actors to react and say their lines. David Prowse, by the way, is British, and there are videos out there of him pre-dubbed where he delivers the dialogue in a British accent. It is tremendously entertaining and also super, super weird. I'll put a link in the description. You can check it out if you want. In this scene, the dialogue in the script that the actors have seen and rehearsed is, "No, Obi-Wan killed your father." Of course, Luke would respond very tragically to this news, that his mentor was the one that killed his father. Remember, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan told him that Darth killed Anakin. Now, Vader is going to flip the script and tell Luke that actually it was Obi-Wan. Vader's hope in this moment would be that this tragic news that his mentor murdered his father would turn Luke to the dark side. Right before filming, Kershner pulled Mark Hamill aside and told him what the dialogue would actually be post-dubbing. He told Hamill to act in such a way and respond in such a way that would allow the real dialogue to make more sense. On set, David Prowse said, "No, Obi-Wan killed your father." Later, it was dubbed,
No, I am your father.
"No, I'm your father." And of course, this is one of the all-time greatest reveals in cinema history. Vader was Luke's father, and the cast never knew it. Unless they spoke German, in which case maybe they guessed. This movie wraps up with cliffhangers. Han is frozen, Lando and Chewie are off to find him. Luke is repaired, but also broken by the recent news and uncertainty of his destiny. The love of Leia's life is in peril. A very to-be-continued moment. We get some beautiful moments here in character development that were not present in A New Hope, which, again, humor, romance, and character development are what Kershner did best and what he set out to infuse into Star Wars. And then, roll credits. By the time Empire was made, the third movie was a given, so they could leave it with a down ending with cliffhanger moments. This was only Act 2. Leave them wanting more. This movie, A and all of the pluses. Wear out the plus button on your keyboard. It's perfect. Even 45 years old, it holds up for its storytelling and what it means to the Star Wars universe. First time with Yoda and his wisdom. First time seeing the Emperor, which we didn't even talk about the Emperor today. First Imperial March. Han and Leia finally expressing their love for each other. And the first great saber fight. And don't forget, I am your father. More than that, we get the humorous one-liners and subtle romance that will remain a staple of the Star Wars universe right up to today. As I have said, this is the movie where Star Wars finds itself. This is the movie that defines what Star Wars is to me. I love this movie. I could do 10 podcasts about it, but I won't. But I want to. And look, if you haven't seen Empire Strikes Back, what in the heck are you waiting for? I love this movie. I love Star Wars. Star Wars is great. Go watch some Star Wars.
That's it. No. Breathe. Find your happy place.
Sports salaries. Let's talk about sports salaries. I planned this rant weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Perfect timing. Micah Parsons just signed a 4-year, $188 million contract. That is an average salary annually of $47 million. And he's not the highest paid athlete. If you don't know who Micah Parsons is, he's a football player. He used to play for the Dallas Cowboys. They went to a contract dispute, and he was just traded to the Packers and received this contract. 4 years, $188 million. That's $47 million per year before taxes. At minimum wage, it would take you over 2,000 years to make $188 million. At an average teacher's salary, it would take you more than 800 years to make that money. Yoda would not have made that money. But Micah Parsons turned down a measly $40 million a year in order to negotiate the bigger contract. Oh my, the horror of only $40 million a year. He obviously couldn't even have paid rent. Look, a pro athlete has genetic and physical abilities that 99.999% of us can never hope to pretend that we maybe could have had. Micah Parsons is one of the best football players in the world. Not a fair comparison, you say. There's only one of him and there's 1 million people making minimum wage. There's 1 million teachers, and I agree. The NFL rookie salary this year is $840,000. Now that's the lowest a rookie can be paid for this year. The second year, by the way, that rookie would make $960,000. That's a heck of a raise. When was the last time you got a 9% raise between your first year and second year, or quite frankly, any 2 years? Ever? I'm 51 years old. I've never gotten a 9% raise, ever. Nobody has. So anyway, $840,000. It would take a first-year teacher almost 16 years to make what that rookie makes in one. A rookie who might never see the playing field, might never play, is making 16 times what a rookie teacher is making. Compare your annual salary before taxes. How many lifetimes would it take you to match Micah Parsons' $47 million a year? And I know there's only one Micah Parsons, and there are 100 ODE teachers of the year. But here's the thing. He turned down $40 million a year in order to get the 47. So let's take that $7 million. That's the difference. It would take a teacher 100 years just to make the difference in the salary he turned down and the salary that he signed. I can't fathom turning down $40 million a year to do a job. And let's not just blame Micah Parsons. It happens in baseball, hockey, basketball, all of the major sports. You want to know why the WNBA players are complaining? Because they are averaging $100,000 a year and they can do math just like I can. And they go, wait a second, 40 million and I make 100,000? I can do maths, all the math. The NFL salary cap, that's the max amount a team can spend per year, is almost $280 million. That's $280 million times 32 teams for a total possible spending of almost $9 billion. That's billion with a B dollars in annual salary expenditures. What if we cut that in half? Don't worry, Micah Parsons will still be making over $20 million a year, so I think he'll survive. What if we took half, which is $4.45 billion with a B dollars, and I don't know, bought some shelter for the homeless, food for the hungry, maybe some college degrees for Scott's tots, and then we see what we have left over. Probably still billions of dollars. Turning down $40 million to sign for $47, man, give me a break. Over the years, I have started caring less and less about sports. Why should my day be ruined by a bunch of filthy rich billionaires because they failed to score more balls than a bunch of other filthy rich athletes? Do I watch? Yes, I watch. And it's not bitter because my team never wins. I'm a Steeler fan. They've won 6 championships in my life. I'm an Ohio State football fan. They've won 3 in my life. So I'm going to watch, but it's not going to ruin my day. Yay, sports. Move the ball, score the points, cash the checks. I feel better. You feel better? I feel better. Homework this week. Be like Leia. Send an I love you text. But don't make it weird. Don't be creepy. You can't wash off creepy. It doesn't go away. No. Quick, think of a friend you haven't heard from in a while. What's the first name that pops in your mind? Great. Send that person a text that says, hey, was thinking about you and wanted you to know that I care. Or, hey, thanks for always being there for me. Sorry we haven't chatted much lately. I miss you. Or, hey, listen to Symbols and Cynicism. It's a great podcast done weekly. Send 2 of these texts. Send 3. Look, how long does it take you to send a text? Don't send a text to the person at the top of your list. Send one to one from the bottom. Reconnect with somebody. Just text someone and tell them you love them appropriately, that you love them. Okay, that's the show. Make sure you leave a rating, drop a comment, or send us a message on your app of choice. Ratings do help us get noticed. Constructive comments and messages help us make this show better. You can text the show with the link at the bottom of the description, including your logo suggestions. We hope you'll join us next time as we discuss the opening of OMEA Marching Band Contest Season with Adjudicated Events Chair J.D. Latour, What's on the Grill, Something Neat with Matt, and Lazy People. Thanks for joining me today. The theme music is Canton South Street Cadence, written by I'm Not Sure Who and I'm Not Sure When. The Shogo logo was designed by John Suh. This show is produced by my sister Kathy, without whom there literally would not have been a show this week. I hope you'll join us next time for more reflections and ranting on Symbols and Cynicism.